Hi, this is Emily of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Madeline, host of Crowned and Dangerous here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you are done with this episode, I hope you'll come back to check out my show, Crowned and Dangerous, where Jessica and I talk about our time in the pageant world. A new show comes out bi-weekly on Thursdays. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Crowned and Dangerous. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
What's up? Welcome and thank you for joining the Confessions of a Military Spouse podcast. I am your host, Jenna Burt. I'm a military spouse of almost 10 years, a health and fitness enthusiast, and a mom to the most amazing little girl. So on today's episode, I want to talk about military spouses and social media. The reason I want to talk about this is because I feel like it's a problem and I want to expose what really happens in these Facebook groups that military spouses are part of. Now, before I get started, I want you guys to know that I do understand bullying happens everywhere. It can happen at school, it can happen online, it can happen at sports. I get it. It is a problem everywhere, but what I want you guys to know is that military spouses are no exception to this problem. So when I first became a military spouse, I thought that we're all spouses and we're all mostly in the same situation, pretty much doing the same thing. So my assumption was that being a military spouse automatically made you this super close-knit, tight family. And that included all of these Facebook groups for spouses and things like that. But that's when I realized that I was totally wrong in that aspect. So I'm part of a lot of Facebook groups for spouses, and you would think that these groups would be super helpful and supportive and offer all of this advice. And while, yes, there are some groups that are like that, there's also groups that are not. And there's oftentimes spouses that are so mean and rude and degrading and say these awful things. And I read it and I just can't help but ask myself, why? Why are they like this? I wonder, why do they need to be so mean? Why do they need to be so hateful? Why do they need to be so rude? It's something that I just can't wrap my head around. And it's not just military spouses. It's literally everybody in the world. I don't understand why people need to be so mean and so rude. The only thing that I can think of is that these people are unhappy in their own life. Maybe they're jealous. Maybe their home life isn't as good as they want it to be. Maybe they have previous trauma that causes them to be this way. Maybe they need help. The only thing that I can think of is that there must be some underlying cause or some underlying issue that causes them to be this way. And you guys, let's be honest. No one marries somebody in the military and automatically knows it all. It just doesn't happen like that. There is no possible way. Military people don't even know it all most of the time. So there's no way that someone that marries somebody in the military just automatically knows everything. Which tells me that at one point in time, they were in the same situation as somebody else. Maybe they were in the same shoes as somebody else. Maybe they had the same struggles. Maybe they had the same problems, but they never voiced it. Maybe those people that had those struggles and those issues and that are now mean and rude and condescending to people, maybe they figured it out on their own. Maybe they even asked for help. Maybe they're just a go with the flow type of person and they just whatever. But whatever the situation is, I know that they didn't know it all. So it makes me wonder, why? Why be so rude to someone who is having the same struggles or having the same questions or having the same issues that I'm sure at one point you had yourself? Okay, Now, I want to give you guys an example of just how mean and rude these spouses can be and exactly what I'm talking about that goes on in these Facebook groups. So a while back now, in one of the Facebook groups that I'm part of, a girl commented about her husband's work schedule and how he left early and he didn't get home till late and how she thought it was ridiculous. If I had to guess, I would have guessed that this girl is probably a new spouse. And let me just read you some of the comments that were made to this girl whenever she posted this. Most of the comments were mean and sarcastic. One of the comments said, "How they treat our spouses is deplorable, borderline abuse in my opinion." That was straight sarcasm, and that girl was just being straight rude. Somebody else posted, "Laugh out loud, at least you're not the one working." Like, really? What purpose does that serve this girl who asked this question? You know, somebody else posted, "All the time, such BS," which I think in a sense was a sarcastic comment. Somebody else posted, and this is one of these comments that drive me nuts, "Just wait until they do a B billet." For those of you that don't know, a B billet is usually recruiting duty or drill instructor duty. We did recruiting duty, and yes, it sucks. The hours are horrible, but it's part of it. Somebody else commented, it's normal. To which someone responded, "Hey, get out of here with that logic." Sarcasm. Like, why? What is the purpose of that? Somebody else posted, "Try going to work at 4:30 and coming back home at 10:30, if at all, for 3 months. Somebody else posted, "My husband hasn't had a day off in 2 weeks. And then somebody else posted, "And that's when they're quote unquote here. Shoot, deployments don't feel that bad when you're used to it half the time." And I get it. Like, yes, deployment sucks. There could be things that are worse than what this girl posted about, but it's not a comparison of whose life is worse. She simply wanted to come to a place that she felt safe enough to vent. And what happens? These people attack her and they make her feel so small. I can't even wrap my head around it. I felt so bad for this girl. And the last time I looked at this post, there were like 50 some odd comments, and I read through every single comment. And you guys, there was one out of like 50 some comments that somebody had something nice and helpful to say. And I'm going to read you what she put. "I'm not sure what unit your husband is in, but I'm sorry you're experiencing this. Is there anything I or my family can help you with in his absence? Not sure if you have kids or if I can be of any help in that way. I will say from the other point of view, there have been times where I've been in the ER and or hospitalized and my husband's COC has told him to take care of his family and not to worry about work. Although it's so appreciated and takes so much stress off of me and allows our daughter a sense of normalcy and not get shuffled between houses. I know that means there is someone who has to do double time trying to do their work and his and probably ends up staying late and not being with their family. So for my family, thank you to those who have sacrificed for us." That was the one nice comment that offered help out of all of those other comments on this poor girl's post. Somebody else right after that commented and said, "Anyways, what else is new?" Like, really? Maybe this girl is brand new. Maybe this is a new work schedule for her husband. Who knows the situation, but not a single one of you, except for one person, decided to get to know this girl and understand why she was feeling the way she was feeling. And then further on down, you guys, somebody had the nerve to write, if I'm not mistaken, it's what he signed up for. I want to strangle people when they say that. Strangle them. Because that is so... I don't even have words for how that makes me feel. Yes, he signed up to be in the military. Yes, his hours are going to be terrible. Yes, he's going to deploy. But it does not make it any easier as a spouse to deal with just because it's what he signed up for. And then somebody else said, "At least they come home later tonight. There's people whose spouses won't be home for the holidays or birth for their children. I'd take late from work any day. Pick your battles. It only gets worse." How is that helpful to this girl? I get it. Stuff does happen. Things could be worse. People do miss holidays and people do miss the births of their children. And sometimes people never come home from deployments. I get it. But again, it's not a comparison. It is not whose life is worse. It is not, oh, take it as a blessing just because it could be worse. There are so many things that applies to in life. I get it. I get it. But this girl came here for help. She came here for advice. She came here to vent. Not to be attacked, not to be put down, not to be made out to feel she is less than. But that's exactly what happened with this post. And that's what kills me, because she obviously was new, probably uneducated. And instead of people trying to help her out and help be nice to her and offer her advice, these people were mean and they were rude and they put her down and they made her feel so small that I would not be surprised if she never posted in that group again, if she never reached out and asked for help. And that's sad. That is so sad, because there are so many other people going through the same thing right now that need help, that are too afraid. And you guys, everybody needs help at some point in their life, whether they're a military spouse or not. If you need help, you usually ask. But when this situation happens, it makes you feel so small that you don't even want to ask for help anymore. And I can say that because I have been there myself. And maybe as a military spouse, we need help more often. And in today's world, you guys, the easiest way to ask for help or advice is the internet and social media. But if people are attacking you whenever you ask and vent and look for advice on certain things, if people are going to attack you, you're not going to want to ask. And when you don't ask, that's when resentment sets in. That's when depression sets in. That's when things start to go downhill. And I will be 100% honest with you guys. I am very selective of what I post, what I ask in certain groups because of everything that I just talked about. I was even selective of where I promoted this podcast for, because I was so afraid of the backlash that I would get if I posted it in certain groups that I didn't even bother, because I already know this is not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I've already had someone leave me a 1-star rating, and it hurt, it stung, but that's okay, because it won't be everybody's cup of tea, but it will be someone's cup of tea. And that is what matters the most to me. When I started this podcast, I started it to bring awareness and to help military spouses. And if one person feels like they get something from this podcast, they feel like they've been helped, they get advice, they feel like they're not alone on this journey, then I have done what I set out to do. And if I can bring awareness, and if I can expose what goes on in a military spouse's life, in their head, what happens to them, and just bring awareness to everybody else in the world that maybe hasn't had to deal with this, then I feel fulfilled. I feel like I have done exactly what I set out to do. So I want to leave you guys with this. The next time a military spouse, or even any person in general, asks something that you think is quote unquote silly in a Facebook group, in a forum, even in person, before you respond in a very rude manner with a very condescending response, before you do any of that, I want you to really stop, and I want you to put yourself in their shoes. Okay, I want you to think about how they're feeling in that moment. Maybe what else is going on behind closed doors that you're not aware of, because we all know that there is stuff that goes on that you are not aware of. And I want you to put yourself in their shoes. And I want you guys to remember the kindergarten rule. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Because these people are reaching out for help because they need it. Not because it's a cry for attention, but it's truly because they need help. They want to feel validated. They need advice, they're reaching out because they feel like they need to, and they feel like that you have something you can provide to them. So again, before you guys respond, put people down, put yourself in their shoes and try to offer them good, solid advice. I hope you guys have an amazing Tuesday. I hope this podcast brought awareness to you guys. I hope that if you're a military spouse listening to this podcast, you no longer feel alone in this journey. And make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode.